Hello and welcome to BBC World News. I'm Martine Dennis. Our top story this morning, spying showdown. Europe's leaders demand talks with the United States as the espionage allegations continue to grow. Broadcasting live from London, you're with BBC World News. Also in the programme.
Hello, I'm Sally Bundock. In business today, EU leaders try to agree on a common corporate tax regime to plug loopholes by big multinational companies like Google, Apple and Amazon. Plus, Samsung Electronics makes record profits boosted by an upswing in its chip division and strong mobile phone sales.
First this morning, France and Germany have called for talks with the United States by the end of the year. Now, this is because of the growing allegations of US spying, which are dominating the EU leaders' summit in Brussels. The latest report suggests 35 world leaders have had their phone calls monitored by US intelligence agencies. The German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, whose mobile is thought to have been listened in on, said the relationship with America had to change radically. From Washington, Katie Watson. Now we go to China because within the last hour or so, a court there has rejected an appeal by the disgraced politician Bo Xilai against his conviction for bribery and corruption. Now this means Mr. Bo will serve the life sentence he was originally given. We can go live now to John Sudworth, our correspondent who's at Shandong High Court in Jinan. And John, tell us what happened in court. Thank you very much. Now, the Portuguese authorities say they have new evidence linked to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann and have reopened the case. They haven't released any details, but Madeleine's parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, have welcomed the move. The United States says it's concerned about the rise of piracy off the coast of West Africa after 2 American citizens were kidnapped from an oil supply ship in the Gulf of Guinea. The mariners were on board the US-flagged Sea Retriever when the pirates attacked. They're the ship's captain and the chief engineer. Now, Sally's here with all the business news. And what have you got for us this morning, Sal?
Well, I'm talking tax. Don't switch off anybody because it's very important. And European leaders are grappling with it yet again today. They're meeting for a second day in Brussels. High on their agenda is the digital economy, in particular the so-called Google tax. The French proposal would be for European-wide tax on digital companies. The question is, will they all come to some kind of agreement? The devil is in the detail. I'll be talking to a top tax expert in World Business Report. Also, we're talking about Samsung Electronics today. It's been making the headlines for all the right reasons. It's clocked in a new record quarterly profit for the 3 months to September. Operating profits rose 26%. We'll be looking at that and all the other business stories, including what it means to different economies for the daylight saving clock change. It's coming up, Martine. So we're going to look into what that does mean for some of the world's economies when we change the clocks.
Be really interesting. Well, Sal can testify to the fact that the business world is just one area of life where women often struggle to get to the top. But some of those that have succeeded will be at our special 100 Women conference here at the BBC headquarters in London later today. Now, they're coming to debate women's lives around the world. And to fuel that debate, new figures have been released on the global gender gap by the World Economic Forum. Philippa Thomas has been looking at where in the world women are getting on best. Lots more to come here at BBC World News this morning. And we'll be looking at the background of this man, a senior al-Shabaab commander thought to be linked to a number of alleged terror plots in Kenya. And we'll tell you why people are so excited about this royal picture and are likely to be so for many years to come. Let's have a look at some of the major stories from around the UK this morning. And the owner of the petrochemical... You're with BBC World News. I'm Martine Dennis, and these are the top stories this morning. The BBC has learned that a senior al-Shabaab commander spent time in the UK and sought asylum in Norway. Abdikadir Mohammed was the subject of an aborted US raid in Somalia last month and is believed to have links to several terror plots, including the 7/7 attack here in London. Our East Africa correspondent Gabriel Gatehouse reports now from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Now to the Czech Republic, where elections for a new government are taking place today. We can talk to our correspondent in Prague, Rob Cameron. And Rob, remind us of the circumstances that have led us to these elections, which are being held early. We can turn our attention now to another election, and one that could be quite a fight. The WBC heavyweight boxing champion Vitaly Klitschko says he's going to run for the Ukrainian presidency in 2 years' time. Now, this comes in response to a bill that was passed in Parliament which bars candidates who've lived outside Ukraine during the past 10 years, just like he has. Emily Thomas reports. Some sports news now. The Manchester City and Ivory Coast midfielder Yaya Toure says black players could boycott the 2018 World Cup in Russia unless the country tackles racism in football. Now, several football clubs have edged a step closer to the last 32 of the Europa League following their victories on Thursday night. Now to tennis, and Serena Williams remains a hot favourite to win the season-ending WTA Championships in Istanbul. Now, many of the newspapers here in Britain have pictures of this baby boy on the front page. He is, of course, Prince George, and this is the first glimpse of the official pictures to mark his christening, which happened yesterday on Wednesday. And as our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell now explains, they're of historical significance. Lots more to come here at BBC World News this morning, so don't go away. You're with BBC World News. I'm Martine Dennis, and these are the top stories this morning. France and Germany. Right, those are the latest headlines from BBC World News. Coming up next, it's the Money News with Sally and World Business Report.
Hello and a very warm welcome. This is World Business Report. I'm Sally Bundock. Also, it's that time of year when in many countries the clocks change. Our correspondents around the world will unravel the mysteries of daylight savings time. That's in a few minutes. But first of all, European leaders meet in Brussels for a second day. High on the summit's agenda is the digital economy, in particular the so-called Google tax. The French proposal would be for a European-wide tax on digital companies. Well, I'm joined by George Bull, Senior Tax Partner at Baker Tilly, to make sense of all of this. Good morning, George.
Good morning.
Thanks for being on the programme. Tell us more then about the France proposal. And I was going to say it has to be all countries agreeing and signing on the dotted line, doesn't it? Because Ireland's already sort of taken various steps, but if Ireland did that on its own, it would not really achieve much, would it? Also, interestingly, I mean, the UK politicians here, David Cameron, etc., have been very vocal on this. I mean, it is a very political issue, and yet the UK is a very attractive place, isn't it, for international companies? So really what we need is a global answer, and will we ever get that? I mean, will we even get this EU answer, do you think? All right, thank you very much indeed, George, for making sense of all of that. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on that story. And incidentally, we're talking about the football tax story in France when we review the papers. But let's move on, because this weekend, millions of people across Europe, the Middle East and Mexico will get an extra hour in bed as daylight saving time comes to an end. But spare a thought for the millions in Brazil, Chile, Australia, New Zealand, who lost an hour earlier this month when their clocks went forward. Half the world doesn't bother with this strange ritual at all, and opinion remains very divided about the economic benefits or otherwise of the clocks changing. Our international correspondents tell us more. All very interesting, isn't it? I must admit, I will relish my extra hour in bed this weekend. I have to grab every moment I can get. Now, let's talk about Samsung. It has posted a record quarterly operating profit thanks to a recovery in its memory chip business and strong mobile phone sales. The South Korean giant's operating profits rose to 10.2 trillion won. In US dollars, that's 9.6 billion. That was during the months of July, August and September. Now, profits at its memory chip business rose to its highest in 3 years. Let's speak to Sharanjit Lail, who's at our Asia Business Hub in Singapore, for more on this. Lovely to see you, Sharon. So Samsung doing very well indeed, which is a massive boost, isn't it, to the South Korean economy? It's such a big player. Sharon in Singapore. Let's squeeze in some other business stories this morning. And the internet retail platform Amazon has posted a smaller quarterly loss for its third quarter. It's also revealed a 24% increase in sales for the period as it's expanding aggressively. Most of that increase came from its US home market, but the retailer is making big inroads overseas as well. So the markets today, there's a lot of corporate stories for the markets to digest. I can't mention them all in detail in this programme. We just haven't got enough time. But you can see the markets headed in one direction pretty firmly. Japan now down over 2%. Just to mention, in South Korea, we can't show you the Kospi, but the Kospi also off a little bit as well. Some companies like LG Electronics really disappointing today. That's another South Korean company out with its earnings. You can see the currencies, the yen strengthening as well. It's possibly why that Japan, one of the reasons why Japan's having such a tough session. I'll see you soon.
Now, here in the UK, women prisoners will be kept as close to their homes as possible under new plans being announced by the government today. It's hoped the change will allow female offenders to have better family relationships and find local employment when they're released. The BBC's North of England correspondent Judith Moritz has the details. Coming up in just a little while at 6 o'clock on Breakfast, John Kay and Louise Minchin will have all the day's news, the business and the sport. Plus, with 4 of the big 6... You're with BBC World News. I'm Martine Dennis, and these are our top stories this morning. France and Germany Right, it's time for us to have a look at the stories that are making headlines in the international press this morning. David Buick has come in, and in fact, we're very happy to see you, and we weren't expecting a man, and you're the only one who's managed to get in the building today, because, of course, today we're celebrating
100 women.
100 women. However, without a frock, David Buick, who's Chief Market Strategist with Panmure Gordon. Welcome, and thank you.
I'm very honoured, Martine. Good morning, Sally. Very honoured.
All right, let's start with The Guardian, shall we? And apparent revelations that 35 world leaders have been spied on by the United States. Is that really a surprise?
It's funny because yesterday we've been talking about this most of this week. To be honest, it's that story that's been dominating with a new EU leader every day, seemingly giving Barack Obama a quick phone call and a quick sort of chat over the phone. But yesterday it was quite funny. Justin was sort of saying, you know, if you're not being spied on, you're just a nobody. Frankly, it's kind of like, you know, I want to be on that list.
I mean, don't you watch all the political spy thrillers?
No, absolutely love it. And I mean, this cannot come as a surprise.
Anyway,
we're going to hear
story will roll on and roll on, and we'll talk about it again.
Front page of the Daily Telegraph, and indeed,
many other papers as well.
So many of the papers share, if not the same picture. The Prince apparently fears that being king will be like prison.
I mean,
so do you believe this? Do you believe this is really his genuine fear? Because of course this story has come.
I think he'd be incandescent with rage if he'd been quoted.
So he fears that once he is the monarch, then he'll have to be silent.
Time out. Definitely.
Interestingly, though, I don't know if you've mentioned this already, Martine, but this photograph of the Queen with 3 successors is the first one we've had in 114 years. Queen Victoria
must have been the
last photograph with 3 successors in the photo. Very interesting. Right, Financial Times. Mark Carney making the front page again, our new Governor of the Bank of England, of course. Carney tears up the rulebook on help for struggling banks.
Let's have a quick word, shall we, about the state of the Spanish economy. Seemingly out of the woods, but how robust is the recovery? Unemployment falling, according to El País today. Le Figaro, the French daily now, talking about, for the first time, French footballers in the first and second leagues going on strike. What's that about?
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because it's the first strike action for 40 years or so. South China Morning Post, this is all about the fact that China, it says, copycat lunar rover.
David Buick, thank you very much indeed.
A joy as always, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, of course, for being with us this morning.
We appreciate your company. Stay with us here on BBC World News.